All right, we're going to be talking about more PR/Super Sentai items that have a lot of issues with them. Let's start off with the Bakureno from Abaranger. Now, the issue with this particular toy affects both the US and Japanese toy lines, whether it's Abareno, the replicant Zord, the US version of Bakureno. Now, the most common thing that breaks on the Triceratops, or this version of the Triceratops on the Bakureno toy, is the tail. It's usually the right side one that commonly breaks. I don't understand why the left side one doesn't break as often, but that's the one that I've seen, whether it's from the US version or the Japanese version. You can do a basic repair. It's fairly simple. Unscrew them in half, take out the pin connector, and simply re-glue them back on in your various ways. Unfortunately, mine is not repaired because I don't have the part. Now, I could get like a junk version of the Triceratops from one of the US versions. That's one of the advantages still using the Japanese mold, because you can interchange the parts when you need to if you run into issues like this. Now let's talk about the Lightspeed Megazord's Pyro Rescue 1 toy. Now this one mainly affects the US release. In the Japanese version, this part is actually die cast, so when they switched it over to standard plastic, that's what caused the weakness. That's the dangers of changing out the parts from the original versions. The die cast parts, or any of the other parts, like if they were chromed because they're using different type of plastics, they're made in a specific way to work with that design. The main reason why these parts break is because the plastic, there's very little plastic over here to grab onto. So the most common points that break are where the screw posts go in. That usually breaks because you put a lot of stress on it, especially if you want to do any of the poses with the ladder arms extending and whatnot. So there's a lot of forces going on into these things, so that's why they commonly break. This issue with the Omega Megazord / Victory Mars affects both Japanese and US. Now, the most common thing that I see broken on the Omega Megazord are located on the claw arms for the bottom feet when it's in crawler mode. The black pieces for the claws break off mainly for age, but it is possible to repair this toy, and you don't have to worry about this type of pin. This pin can actually be removed fairly easily. It's not soldered in like with the Lion Zord in the Ninja Storm toy line. This one you can actually pop out if you have a small enough screwdriver and simply bang it out. Another thing that can potentially break on the Omega Zord's feet are the connectors that connect to the die-cast foot parts. Now, in most cases, people don't even realize you're supposed to actually extend this out when it's in Megazord mode. In crawler mode, you leave this closed down. This connector inside tends to break. It's not common, but it is one that I have seen that's broken. The main reason why is because this is a full die-cast part. It's very heavy, and when you have to close and open it, and if you do it a lot of times, it's very stiff when you have to pull it out. You'll potentially break it when you're moving it out or when you're locking it back in, because it's just you need a lot of force to move it back and forth. That's the one thing I hated about its design. I thought it was really cool and unique because it has this beetle mode, but unfortunately it causes a lot of connection issues with the way it's designed. Next up is the Rescue Morpher. Now, this is more of a warning. Now, this is a design fault that's exclusive to the American version, because in the Japanese version, the toy has an LCD screen. With the Rescue Morpher changing, how it works is that in the toy, there's a reflective screen that's in the front, and whenever you push, either Morph or call the Rescue Megazord, these lights light underneath. If you notice on mine, you could see both of them at any time. Basically what they did was they used a simple piece of clear plastic, and they had that spray-on mirror reflective material that's put on front. And when the lights go on, it'll shine through. Well, when I was doing maintenance work on it many years ago, and I was also curious on how it worked, you can take out the screen, but it's very easy to smudge and make that stuff come off. So I highly suggest, if you attempt to either have to repair the toy or you want to just do some maintenance on it to either repaint it, fix it from its age, be careful with that screen, because once you rub it off, I really don't know if there's any way to get a kind of spray on for that reflective mirror material. Now the next item on the list is kind of surprising because it's one of the newest items, the Legacy Zeonizer. Now, for the most part, I thought it was an excellent recreation of the original toy. It's very faithful to the toy, scale, size, details, and they added extra details, which was great and all. There is unfortunately 2 design faults with the toy. Now, if you look at the original King brace that I have, if you look at it, when you flip open the top piece, you'll notice that in the original version of the toy, it has the clip. In the Legacy version of the toy, they decided to be like, no, we don't want to do that. So we want to have more of the original, chrome detail on it, which is cool and all. However, this causes a severe design fault. The main reason why in the original toy this was done is because, this is a 2-piece Morpher where it has to, flip both pieces at the same time, where one comes down, one comes up. The toy is actually specifically designed to make sure that both pieces do not collide with each other. So if you look on the original version of the toy, you'll see that the die-cast part has a very small clip to lock the head plates in. But on the Legacy version, because they redesigned where the clip goes and it's much farther away and down, they made the hook much bigger and fatter. This causes the issue where if you don't have the 2 pieces exactly straight and it's just slightly off, they'll constantly bang into each other. They did try to alleviate it because I noticed that in the Legacy version of the toy, this red part is much longer than the original version, try to compensate for it. But unless you're really straight on when doing this, you're going to always run into the problem of this banging into it, and over time this will get scratched up. Now the other problem is an unfortunate one. They added additional functions to the Legacy Zeonizer that the original toy didn't have. The original toy just simply, when you pushed them together, it would just beep and that would be it. The Legacy version added, all the characters. So if you wanted to do Zeoranger 1 through 5, you could hear their voices and they would do their specific colors, which was a great enhancement to the toy. But because of the way the toy was designed originally, they didn't have really much any place to put the way you select which ranger goes through. So the way they did it was they took the circular part of the Zeonizer and made it a dial, basically. Think of like the Lost Galaxy Morpher. So you can rotate it and it will randomly select Zeoranger 1 through 5 or the Zeo theme song. The problem is, because they were stuck with the design, over time, especially if you're sweating, this dial is extremely difficult to rotate, and eventually it will not rotate because you're constantly slipping because of the chrome part. This is one of the biggest faults of the toy. The one way they could have alleviated was that they could have added grooves to the toy where you can put your fingernail in to actually make it move. And unfortunately, it just has this constant problem where you rotate it and it just gets jammed. And for our last item on the table is the T-Rex from MMPR. Now this fault is for all the original versions of the Megazord, whether Daijujin, Megazord, or the black and gold version of either version. Now the way the T-Rex feet work is that the top part of the feet have clicking points, like most of the normal toys. That's how that locks into the leg. The bottom part of the feet, where they rotate up and down, are done by friction bands. Now these things over time can become loose, or because the plastic could have worn out, or the metal inside has just gotten contracted because of the magnetic type. There is a way to fix this. You can knock out the metal bands inside with a very small screwdriver. Once you get them out, the best thing you can do, because you really can't do anything about the plastic, the best thing you can do is find a slightly bigger screwdriver and push it into the metal hull part of the metal band. Over time, if you do it slowly enough, you'll expand the metal out and you should be able to push it back in, and it should restore the functionality of the feet.
One other issue you can run into is the tail tip tends to fall out when the ball joints wear out. A way to fix it is to use glue to create or fill up the ball joint, then sand it down to size so it can be put back in. In the previous episode, one of my suggestions on repairs was using a soldering iron to melt plastic back together. There is an alternative option using glues like Tamiya, which are designed to melt the plastic at the joints.
Unfortunately, the PR line can be affected when they redesign the toys. For the most part, it doesn't affect the toy line whenever they remove the die-cast part, besides aesthetically, not looking that great. Unfortunately, every now and again, the die-cast part is actually used to reinforce the original toy, and it was intended intended to be a bracing point, and when they do remove it, it does have problems. But on the other hand, with this toy, the die-cast part is so heavy, you put so much force on it in order to open it or close it. So yeah, thanks everyone for watching. I hope this will help you in order to deal with these particular toys. And if you have any suggestions of other PR/Super Sentai toys that have issues, leave a comment below and I may check them out in the future. Yeah, I was really disappointed with the Legacy Zeonizer. It was so, like, they improved so many things with the newer version that it was almost perfect. It was like 98% perfect with the 2 design faults, and of course they didn't hire the actors to do the voices, which I still don't get why Bandai never did that. It's like the only time they ever got someone to actually voice the character that they did in the show was Tony Oliver when they did the Legacy Saba. He's the only one who came back and did it. I was like, great, you got someone, but Rangers, Zordon, Alpha, no. You couldn't be bothered to just simply pay the actors to come back to do these lines for a little bit, or pay to go into the archives and get the audio from them.